Now, Socrates had his share of rich fanboys. Socrates, there's another thing. Young men of the richer classes who have not much to do came about me of their own accord. They like to hear the pretenders examined, and they often imitate me and proceed to examine others. There are plenty of persons, as they quickly discover, who think that they know something but really know little or nothing. And then those who are examined by them, instead of being angry with themselves, are angry with me. Imagine yourself a know-nothing who thinks himself a know-something. It would be one thing to have Socrates cross-examine you and reduce your pretensions to shreds. It would be quite another to be shredded by so many Socrates-light imitators. This confounded Socrates, they say, this villainous misleader of youth. And then if somebody asks them what evil does he practice or teach, they do not know and cannot tell. But in order that they may not appear to be at a loss, they repeat the ready-made charges which are used against all philosophers about teaching things up in the clouds and under the earth and having no gods and making the worse appear the better cause. For they do not like to confess that their pretense of knowledge has been detected, which is the truth. And as they are numerous and ambitious and energetic and are drawn up in battle array and have persuasive tongues, they have filled your ears with their loud and inveterate calumnies. And this is the reason why my three accusers, Meletus, Antonidas, and Lycon, have set upon me. And this, O men of Athens, is the truth and the whole truth. I have concealed nothing. I have dissembled nothing. And yet I know that my plainness of speech makes them hate me. And what is their hatred but a proof that I am speaking the truth? Hence has arisen the prejudice against me, and this is the reason of it, as you will find out either in this or in any future inquiry. I'm not so sure I entirely buy Socrates on this point. His explanation for the prejudice against him sounds plausible enough, but he's making a huge oversight. There's a huge honking elephant in the court that nobody is alluding to. That is Critias, one of Socrates' friends, who just happened to be one of the most violent oligarchs among the 30 tyrants. After Athens lost the Peloponnesian War to Sparta, the 30 tyrants were a sort of puppet elite government. Critias and Theramenes were their leaders. The tyrants took away voting rights from all but the wealthiest Athenians. Freudian slip there. They restricted legal participation to an elite group of 500 people. They restricted the rights to possess weapons and receive a trial by jury. And they purged Athens of democratic leaders who were forced into exile or imprisoned. Hemlock was a popular beverage during their reign. Think of Critias as the Joe McCarthy of Athens. He blacklisted citizens as enemies of the state and confiscated their property. He was killed in a battle with Athenian exiles near Piraeus, triggering the end of the 30s rule. Now, Critias was Plato's uncle. He appears as a character in two Platonic dialogues, Charmides and Protagoras, and possibly Timaeus and Critias. Scholars are not in agreement on those two. A lot of people in Athens reviled him. He was a bad dude, not someone you wanted to be associated with. And Socrates was cozy with him. We are talking guilt by association here. It's also worth bearing in mind that Socrates never left Athens during the reign of the 30 tyrants. At this point in history, Socrates was on the wrong side. Were the Athenians seeking to settle old scores by going after anyone associated with Critias? Perhaps. Socrates, who by his own admission was an irritating fellow, in Socrates' defense, according to Xenophon, Critias and Charicles, both members of the 30 tyrants, tried to strong-arm Socrates into not speaking to any men under 30 years old, a sign that even the oligarchs saw him as a threat to the youth. One legend says Socrates did attempt to intervene when a moderate member of the 30, Theramenes, was raising objections to the 30's excessive use of force, though this story is probably apocryphal. And when the 30 ordered him to join a posse setting out to grab the Democratic general Leon from Salamis, Socrates refused. This would have been grounds for execution, but soon thereafter, the Democratic forces had toppled the oligarchs. So while nobody would confuse Socrates with being a pro-democracy advocate, it is equally as hard to tag him with a pro-oligarchy label. What is more likely the case is the fact that Socrates really wasn't all that politically active. He was a philosopher, caught up in a political maelstrom. Maybe it's true. Everybody just hated the guy. Payback was in the air, and Socrates was a convenient target. In any event, was Socrates really such a threat to Athens? This is a much deeper and more important philosophical and ethical question. So ends Socrates' attack on the legacy of his haters. Next, he will turn to the specific charges leveled at him by Meletus. Socrates. He says that I am a doer of evil and corrupt the youth, but I say, O men of Athens, that Meletus is a doer of evil, in that he pretends to be in earnest when he is only in jest, and is so eager to bring men to trial from a pretended zeal and interest about matters in which he really never had the smallest interest. And the truth of this I will endeavor to prove to you. We now see Socrates getting into his classic dialogue Q&A mode, where he's most comfortable. Socrates takes up the charge that he's corrupting the youth of Athens. Come hither, Meletus, and let me ask a question of you. You think a great deal about the improvement of youth? Yes, I do. Tell the judges then who is their improver, for you must know, as you have taken the pains to discover their corrupter, and are citing and accusing me before them. Speak then, and tell the judges who their improver is. Observe, Meletus, that you are silent and have nothing to say. But is not this rather disgraceful and a very considerable proof of what I was saying, that you have no interest in the matter? Speak up, friend, and tell us who their improver is. The laws. Notice how his first question to Meletus turns the charge around. The opposite of corruption is improvement. To know if someone is corrupting the youth, it would be wise to know who improves the youth. Meletus's answer, the laws, is insufficient for Socrates. He wants to know who, but let me stop for a moment on the laws, because it calls forth the question, can morality be legislated? In a news story many, many years ago, I read that the state of Missouri enacted a law banning teacher-student communication over Facebook. That's an attempt to prevent the corruption of the youth. Laws like this purport to codify our principles for attaining a good society, and to that extent can be seen as a reflection of society's moral and ethical priorities. Socrates refuses to accept the laws as an answer because, in his view, a law is nothing. It's mere words on a page if it's not interpreted, executed, and enforced by people. So who knows the laws? Socrates. But that, my good sir, is not my meaning. I want to know who the person is, who in the first place knows the laws. The judges, Socrates, who are present in court. What? Do you mean to say, Meletus, that they are able to instruct and improve youth? Certainly they are. What, all of them? Or some only and not others? All of them. By the goddess, here, that is good news. There are plenty of improvers then, and what do you say of the audience? Do they improve them? Yes, they do. And the senators? Yes, the senators improve them. But perhaps the members of the assembly corrupt them. Or do they, too, improve them? They improve them. Then every Athenian improves and elevates them, all with the exception of myself. And I alone am their corrupter. Is that what you affirm? That is what I stoutly affirm. The judges, the audience, the senators, the members of the assembly, everyone in Athens except Socrates. The trap has been laid. Socrates: I am very unfortunate if you are right, but suppose I ask you a question. How about horses? Does one man do them harm and all the world good? Is not the exact opposite the truth? One man is able to do them good, or at least not many. The trainer of horses, that is to say, does them good, and others who have to do with them rather injure them. Is not that true, Meletus, of horses, or of any other animals? Most assuredly it is, whether you and Anytus say yes or no. Happy indeed would be the condition of youth if they had one corrupter only, and all the rest of the world were their improvers. But you, Meletus, have sufficiently shown that you never had a thought about the young. Your carelessness is seen in your not caring about the very things which you bring against me. Socrates shows the ridiculousness of the accusation by analogy. Horse trainers improve horses, dog trainers improve dogs. Is everyone in the world an improver of horses or dogs except for one corrupter? Why is Socrates being singled out as a corrupter of youth when it would be absurd to claim that everyone else in society is their improver? Round one goes to Socrates, but he isn't done yet. And now, Meletus, I will ask you another question. By Zeus, I will. Which is better, to live among bad citizens or among good ones? Answer, friend, I say. The question is one which may be easily answered. Do not the good do their neighbors good, and the bad do them evil? Certainly. And is there anyone who would rather be injured than benefited by those who live with him? Answer, my good friend. The law requires you to answer. Does anyone like to be injured? Certainly not. And when you accuse me of corrupting and deteriorating the youth, do you allege that I corrupt them intentionally or unintentionally? Intentionally, I say. But you have just admitted that the good do their neighbors good, and the evil do them evil. Now, is that a truth which your superior wisdom has recognized thus early in life? And am I, at my age, in such darkness and ignorance as not to know that if a man with whom I have to live is corrupted by me, I am very likely to be harmed by him, and yet I corrupt him, and intentionally too? So you say, although neither I nor any other human being is ever likely to be convinced by you. But either I do not corrupt them, or I corrupt them unintentionally. And on either view of the case, you lie. If my offense is unintentional, the law has no cognizance of unintentional offenses. You ought to have taken me privately and warned and admonished me, for if I had been better advised, I should have left off doing what I only did unintentionally. No doubt I should. But you would have nothing to say to me and refuse to teach me. And now you bring me up in this court, which is a place not of instruction, but of punishment. The logic is convoluted, but makes sense if you think about it long enough. If I intentionally corrupt the youth, and they become bad neighbors, bad citizens, then they will do harm to me. There would be blowback. Why would anyone intentionally bring that harm upon themselves? Next, Socrates turns to the manner of corruption he is supposed to be having on the youth. It will be very clear to you, Athenians, as I was saying, that Meletus has no care at all, great or small, about the matter. But still I should like to know, Meletus, in what am I affirmed to corrupt the young? I suppose you mean, as I infer from your indictment, that I teach them not to acknowledge the gods which the state acknowledges, but some other new divinities or spiritual agencies in their stead. These are the lessons by which I corrupt the youth, as you say. Yes, that I say emphatically. So it's a question of Socrates casting doubt on the official divinities. Is he some kind of atheist? Then, by the gods, Meletus, of whom we are speaking, tell me and the court in somewhat plainer terms what you mean, for I do not as yet understand whether you affirm that I teach other men to acknowledge some gods, and therefore that I do believe in gods, and am not an entire atheist, This you do not lay to my charge, but only you say that they are not the same gods which the city recognizes. The charge is that they are different gods. Or do you mean that I am an atheist simply and a teacher of atheism? I mean the latter, that you are a complete atheist. What an extraordinary statement. Why do you think so, Meletus? Do you mean that I do not believe in the godhead of the sun or moon like other men? I assure you, judges, that he does not, for he says that the sun is stone and the moon earth. Meletus seems to be accusing Socrates of being a materialist. Friend Meletus, you think that you are accusing Anaxagoras, and you have but a bad opinion of the judges if you fancy them illiterate to such a degree as not to know that these doctrines are found in the books of Anaxagoras the Clazomenian, which are full of them. And so, forsooth, the youth are said to be taught them by Socrates when there are not unfrequently exhibitions of them at the theater, and they might pay their money and laugh at Socrates if he pretends to father these extraordinary views. And so, Meletus, you really think that I do not believe in any god? I swear by Zeus that you believe absolutely in none at all. Nobody will believe you, Meletus, and I am pretty sure that you do not believe yourself. I cannot help thinking, men of Athens, that Meletus is reckless and impudent, and that he has written this indictment in a spirit of mere wantonness and youthful bravado. Has he not compounded a riddle, thinking to try me? He said to himself, I shall see whether the wise Socrates will discover my facetious contradiction, or whether I shall be able to deceive him and the rest of them, for he certainly does appear to me to contradict himself in the indictment, as much as if he said that Socrates is guilty of not believing in the gods and yet of believing in them. But this is not like a person who is in earnest. I should like you, O men of Athens, to join me in examining what I conceive to be his inconsistency. And do you, Meletus, answer, and I must remind the audience of my request that they would not make a disturbance if I speak in my accustomed manner. Socrates. Did ever man, Meletus, believe in the existence of human things and not of human beings? I wish, men of Athens, that he would answer, and not be always trying to get up an interruption. Did ever any man believe in horsemanship and not in horses, or in flute playing and not in flute players? No, my friend. I will answer to you and to the court as you refuse to answer for yourself. There is no man who ever did. But now, please to answer the next question. Can a man believe in spiritual and divine agencies and not in spirits or demigods? He cannot. How lucky I am to have extracted that answer by the assistance of the court. But then you swear in the indictment that I teach and believe in divine or spiritual agencies, new or old, no matter that for that. At any rate, I believe in spiritual agencies, so you say and swear in the affidavit. And yet, if I believe in divine beings, how can I help believing in spirits or demigods? Must I not? To be sure I must, and therefore I may assume that your silence gives consent. Now what are spirits or demigods? Are they not either gods or the sons of gods? Certainly they are. The affidavit referred to is not extant, unfortunately, so we are at a loss to interpret or even evaluate with conviction Socrates' argument on this point. If Socrates is accurately portraying it, then Meletus has been caught in an inconsistency, which supports Socrates' argument that Meletus' charges are frivolous. But this is what I call a facetious riddle invented by you. The demigods or spirits are gods, and you say first that I do not believe in gods, and then again that I do believe in gods, that is, if I believe in demigods. For if the demigods are the illegitimate sons of gods, whether by the nymphs or by any other mothers of whom they are said to be the sons, what human being will ever believe that there are no gods if they are the sons of gods? You might as well affirm the existence of mules and deny that of horses and asses. Such nonsense, Meletus, could only have been intended by you to make trial of me. You have put this into the indictment because you had nothing real of which to accuse me. But no one who has a particle of understanding will ever be convinced by you that the same men can believe in divine and superhuman things and yet not believe that there are gods and demigods and heroes. I have said enough in answer to the charge of Meletus. Any elaborate defense is unnecessary, but I know only too well how many are the enmities which I have incurred, and this is what will be my destruction, if I am destroyed. Not Meletus, nor yet Anytus, but the envy and detraction of the world, which has been the death of many good men, and will probably be the death of many more. There is no danger of my being the last of them. I like the way he wraps up this portion of his defense. He's saying, in effect, these accusers are frivolous, they're puppets, their charges are a pretense, the whole trial is just a charade. What's really at work? It is simple. Socrates, a good and irritating man, is being taken down by jealous detractors, the haters. In the same way that ornamented, rhetorically baroque speeches occlude the truth, so these trumped-up charges paper over the true motives at work. The real dangerous types are not the Socrateses here and to come, but the frauds who lead our nations and indict the good under false pretenses.